Okay, welcome back. So here's a guided tour on the drum expansions in the Total Studio bundle, and they're set up a little bit different than the normal expansions that you would see in other expansions. So we'll just kind of walk through. So first of all, if I go into the basic drum super drums pack, they're divided between acoustic and electric. Pretty straightforward. And then here's the electric. Now, electric has all like your famous workstation style drums. So if you know anything about those, like here's the R8. Okay. Turn these previews up a little bit. Okay. All right. So I happen to be on MPC X right now, but so there's a Latin percussion. Some Rex style, little elements and so forth. But the majority, most of these, they're all playable from the pads. So like a regular traditional drum machine. All right, so the way this is set up is there will be no previews for these presets that you see that says blank, and then there's going to be a name of origin of where these drums predominantly came from. And these are nothing more to get you started for customization. Now, if you want to go through the actual presets, so that means the pads are already populated with actual kit layout. So, for example, if I go into walkie-talkie drums, it's actually going to load a preset that's here, plus it's going to have sounds that are sort of deeper into the expansion. So what you'll see here, if I go to walkie-talkie drums, there will be actual assignment. All right. There are actual on bank A. There's going to actually be a layout that I implemented. Okay. Now, if you go to bank A, B, C, and D, and the way you can look at it like this. So if I go into the different banks, you can see that there are various, and we'll get to this later, program assignments that are already predefined in here so that they're easy to copy over and move around, okay? So what I did, and I don't use it a lot as much as I thought I would, but what I did is created, let's go in the browse again to the drum kits again. So these are all basic presets again. Okay. But if I go into this other blank thing, this was sort of designed so that if I wanted to start out making a kit, I could go into a certain profile. Like this is BFD standard, one of the easy drummers, and it gives you all the presets on the banks from banks B through on out, but it leaves the first bank blank so you can get started with building a kit to the layout that you prefer. So let's just go kind of take a quick look at that. So I have a blank BFD London drum set. There's nothing going to be on here, but as you see, if I go to these other banks, if I double tap your bank, that's bank E, F, G, and some of the libraries go that deep where they're going into the E, F, G, and all that. So what I'm going to do is quickly show you just the basic principles. So I'm in bank B, and I'm going to look for a placement of a snare. So let me see if I can get this all on the video here. I might not be able to, but let's just do a kick. So all I have to do is I'm on bank B here, and I got this blank to start us off. So if I hit the copy button on the MPC, hold it down, green is going to denote right here the source of where it's coming from, and then red will be the destination. So let's go on. I'm on bank B. Hold this down, and this is the kick that I just played. I'm going to bank A, and I'm going to just place that kick somewhere. How about here and here? So I got a kick in two spots, the same sample. Okay. Now, I'll take this snare here, these two snares here. I'll take this one, copy, hold the bank down to A, and I'm going to do it right here. And then I'm going to take this snare. And now I have this. So you can kind of get to the point you start building other kits. Now, what if, so this is based off the BF London kit, based off of it. So what if I want a set of hi-hats from a whole different library? So let's just go to browse. There's a couple ways of doing this. One, the easiest way is just to load the browser. So let's just say take the let's take the fat and thin kit. All right. So now if I go to here, here's fat thin, and here's the hi-hat. Now, how do I get this hi-hat to the other kit? What's the easiest way, or what's one of many ways? Well, when the browser gets full with samples that you start loading, it can get kind of complex. So if you're building a kit, the best thing to do is to build a kit off of an empty session. That way you don't have samples that are just everywhere. Because if you start loading more multi-sampled key group instruments, the sample pool gets really filled with samples that you have to get through. However, one way you can do it is if you go into here and hit the pencil icon on the third panel, and you see this thing says copy pads. So I can take, this is pad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the hi-hat from A5, and I want to load that hi-hat into this blank kit that I'm working in. So we can, you don't actually have to, technically you don't actually have to place it in the exact spot. I'll show you what I mean. But, so A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want it in the 9th spot on the blank drum kit. That's 9. And you say apply. So what happens, and I'm also going to take A 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5, 6, 7, and apply it to the blank kit, which is this pad here, which is 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 8, 9, 10, 11. So on the blank kit here, right here. So this current version of the firmware, you don't get any preview, so you do have to do the counting. So if I go back to this blank kit that I'm creating, so I want this right here. So it's not a big deal. This right here, to move that, you just hit the copy, and right there, and look. So here I got the basics of a new layout. And you can see you can start adding toms, crashes, whether it's from the internal kit that we started with, which is sort of, like I said, a quick start way of working, or you're getting it from another kit, which I just showed you that example. And then you can just simply rename this kit. We'll call it Hi Kit. Okay, so I just renamed it. I didn't save anything yet. Now, however, let's just say you really like this kit and you want to save it for future use. There's a couple ways of doing it. The one basic way of doing it is just hitting the pencil, save the current program, and just direct it to the drive where you want to save it, whether it's internally in the MPC or in your documents. And I can just hit a new folder, and I'll call this demo kit, and when you hit save, all right, it's going to save the program data, and it's also going to save the actual samples themselves. Now, that's not the only way to do it, and we're really more moving towards the topic of almost like an advanced topic of saving and creating expansions, or saving alterations that you may have made to an expansion, and that's very well possible. So, and just keep in mind, if you're going to save back to an expansion, that's not really the way Akai wants you to work. They want you to work where you're drawing sounds from the expansions into a project, which we're in now, and ultimately any alterations to from the source where you got it from will be saved, or customizations will be saved in your project. But let's just say you wanted to, you made an alteration that you always know that you always want to have in an expansion. It could be a volume change. It could be a kit piece. In this case, we're going to do. So here's fat and thin. Okay, so let's just say I made an alteration in fat and thin, and I want to save it back to the expansion pack, because whenever time I load it up in the future, I want that alteration to take place every time, which is a good reason. You just hit save current program, and you'll go back to your expansion, which is right here. So in my case, if you go back to, let's just see if I can do this correctly here. I'm going to go into, let's go all the way back out. You go into library, your name, just right here. Sorry about that. So you're going to go into your name at the top, library. We're doing this on the computer right now. All right. Library, application support. This is on a Mac. Akai, MPC, and you go find that expansion folder. And this was in the drum, the actual drum expansion. So you're going into the original source, deep into your system level. So it's sort of an advanced topic. But if I go into Super Drums, it's in the acoustic folder, and it's called Fat and Thin. That's the original kit. And there it is right there, Fat and Thin. Now, once I write over this, it's going to make a permanent change to that. So always back up your original expansions, no matter where you got them from, so that in case you have to revert back to them, you'll have the ability to get recourse out of that, go back. All right, and you just save over it. And I'm not going to save over it, this pack right now. But it's an option that you actually have, not just to save it forward into a project, but you can save it backwards back into the same expansion pack. Okay, so that's pretty much, remember, it's a destructive save in that case, destructive to the actual pack, because it's going to permanently make that change. You can also name it differently, okay, and save it back to the same expansion pack. So you could have, rename it Fat and Thin, blah, 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 whatever, and then go back. Okay. Now, typically the way the MPC works, when it's hooked up to the computer, it automatically defaults to the last directory you are in, which is kind of convenient sometimes. So, but to find it on your Windows or your Mac, you have to, it's in a hidden folder on both operating systems. In the Windows Explorer, you're going to have to check Show Hidden Files. Okay, and on the Mac, you're actually going to have to go into the Finder with your username and go in the View options, and you have to actually click Show Library under your system name, or else these folders are not accessible. So I'm not going to show that in this video, but you can look it up on YouTube or the internet for both Windows and Mac. Now, maybe in perhaps another video I'll talk about expansion management as it relates to just managing all your expansions within your standalone MPC and your desktop. Because I know there are some people that do not use the computer. I know a few people that don't use computers at all and just use it pretty much straightforward. So, but that's basic drum expansion and drum kit creation. Now there's one last way of doing it. So I'm going to start with an empty project again. I'm just going to start clean. So I'm going to open up a new project here. And that is creating the kit yourself off of a pool of samples. Okay, now that's a little bit different to do that. So I'm gonna start out with loading just some samples, and I'm gonna do it through loading an actual pack. So we'll start out with this JR kit. Okay, so I'm going to go in, pretend I just got another kit. So I'm going to go into blank kit. So we'll call this demo. Okay. So we're going to, this really gets into sample program editing and program creating. So we're going to kind of go over some of those basics along the way. So I've got a blank kit. I've got nothing. A drum kit. I've got nothing. So there's a couple things. There's two things that have to happen. One, you have to have samples in your pool that you can assign to the pads, and then the second part is you have to actually program the actual pad. So each pad is actually like a little key group in itself, exclusive to the one pad. Okay, so let's first assign samples to a key. I'm just going to do one pad to show you. So if I go into sample pool, I've got, as you can see, I'm going to scroll through all these kick drums, pure samples that I've edited. So let's just say I want a kick drum. I got a kick drum that's 128. The velocity is hit pretty hard, and one that's hit not as hard. Let's say I want to assign that. One of the most simplest ways to do it without leaving this page is don't double click on it, but go into here and just drag it on to the pad. You see that? Now, if you're going to do multi-velocity drums, the best way to do it is to sort of have a method. So the method I use is I hold shift down, and when I drag, I'll drag it into a slot. See how it turns red? You might not be able to see it, but it turns red. So I'm going to drag it to this first slot. I'm going to drag this to the second slot. So right now, it's just this is a raw kit, okay? So I'm just going to, that's a step on how to assign your samples to the actual pad group or key group. Actually, it's like a pad group. Once you get everything set up, okay, this is one way of probably 20 different ways you could do something. You go in the program edit on your MPC, okay, and you can see the name that I named it. And this is where you set your basic properties like splits, your velocity window layers, your cutoff groups like mute group, which you could assign to certain pads to cut your hi-hats off. So if I have a group of number 2, I can assign all my hi-hats to number 2, and they'll cut each other off like a choke. Okay, so as I start going through, you can kind of see the different samples, your envelopes, and they're very useful, by the way. Your little frequency oscillator that you only have one. Your modulation and your effects, okay? All right, so let's just go back to the basics here. So I'm going to go into this little page here where you can see this is going to give us the total MIDI volume, not the sample volume, but the MIDI volume. And I'm just going to leave this as default right now. We're just going to concentrate right now on building what they call a velocity window. So I want the hardest hit velocity to play when I hit the pad at a feel, let's just say from 105 to 127. And I want the lower velocity to be just under that. So we're not going to even overlap it. We're just going to do it under 104. So we'll do 104. So I can just go into here, 104, enter. All right. So now I got the lower kick and the higher kick. Okay. So if I hit shift and then hit the samples tab, it's going to go back one. If I hit it without hitting shift, it goes forward one. So that's how you go back and forth real quickly. So for example, if I just mute the volume, the MIDI volume of this actual sample layer, see how I get nothing? And you can only hear the lower velocity. So it's really acclimating. You have to acclimate it to your own personal preference and then how you like to perform, where those velocities are. And there's an art doing this because using the MIDI volume is very, very helpful for making like non-destructive tweaks. Because let's just say this sample, when I'm doing a sampling session and I think something's just a tad bit too hot, before I start editing in the actual sample editor, because I want that sample to have a certain amount of depth, I'll adjust the volume in terms of MIDI volume. So sample that might have been too hot can be adjusted here. Okay, and there we go. Okay, and then there are several other adjustments that you can make. So, and I'm not going to really go through the whole sample editor, but I use a great deal of these. The random is kind of cool because you can use it for the layer almost like a round robin, but it just depends on how you want to use it. And then your one shot, note off, note on. Feel free to just experiment with those as you're building and programming your kit. You know, I think for me, the gateway for me doing all these sample packs was that I learned really on my own, and I experimented with some of these features. And not knowing what you're doing in the beginning sometimes is a blessing in disguise because it allows discovery, experimentation on all this. But one of the cool things about this is you actually can assign effects to certain pads. So see, as I hit different pads, this is going to change. The properties of what you're affecting is going to change. So if I had to put an effect on something like a reverb on the snare, but I didn't want it on anything else, you can do that. You can actually do that. And then you play around with these effects too. These are high-pass filters, soft clippers, gains, decimators. You have different, like if I wanted the ring modulator just on this kick. So you can actually, so let's go back to this Robinson kit, and I go into edit. You can actually take a kit like this, and I'm going to put Bit Crusher on it. So all I'm going to do is just add some Bit Crusher. And you can actually take the decimator out. And you can change what you want on here. So I got a hard clipper. You can keep it from clipping. So there's other, and you can do multiple things. I can put the high pass. A lot of things that you can actually do on here. You can use the modulator. So as of this actual firmware, you actually can assign ADSR uh, to the Q links, but only on drum kit programs. Unfortunately, you can't do it on key group instruments. But that's but this is really just more of a basics again, and a little and then some on things that you can do to build your own drum kit. And this video, you don't have to save this video. I'll probably in the future just send this video in its entirety along with every expansion pack that I sell, so you'll get this video as reference. So hope you enjoyed this. Until next time.